according to SKC, saying that Nnamdi Kanu suffering for the sins of Igbo leaders. How? Ezekiel 18:20, a son must not suffer the punishment for the father's guilt. Therefore, those grandstanding as Igbo leaders should be falling on top of each other, protesting, demanding President Muhammadu Buhari to detain them instead of the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. The objective fact is that Kanu is suffering for the sins of the Igbo leaders. How? The first sin of these Igbo leaders is lack of developments in Igbo land that due their heir of Kanu in the first place. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, remember, began to gain national prominence not long after General Muhammadu Buhari gained democratic power in 2015. Key to Kanu's popularity among the masses was his boldness to say enough is enough after the leaders from the southeast and south-south zones failed to hold President Muhammadu Buhari accountable for the naked threat to marginalize the Biafran region simply because the people voted en masse for their native son, President Goodluck Jonathan. But their failure to confront Buhari is understandable. Most of these Eastern leaders, like their counterparts in other regions, are virally corrupt. Thus, they continue to fear that the president would readily revenge by marshalling the anti-corruption agency against them. Such dilemma prompted My Peace, Buhari and Nnamdi Kanu fighting the wrong enemies. There, I reminded that before Buhari's presidency, a major aim of Radio Biafra, in Kanu's own words, was to uproot all looters, embezzlers, kidnappers, sponsors of terrorism, child trafficking, corrupt judges, crooked university lecturers, murderous Nigerian security forces, and all thieving individuals masquerading as public officials who steal public funds, thereby preventing developmental projects from impacting positively on the lives of the ordinary people. Yes, I then followed that if Buhari was ever sincere with his election campaign promise to fight corruption, the president and Kanu ought to have common enemies in the very corrupt leaders from the southeast and south zones of Nigeria who plundered development opportunities in Biafran land during the last 6 years of the astronomical oil boom before Buhari assumed democratic power. The second sin of the Igbo leader is their nonchalant attitude towards the long-standing policy of the federal authorities to reduce the Igbo nation to a mere dot in a circle. In fact, what most people do not know is that Nnamdi Kanu's biggest crime against the Nigeria state is actually his doggedness to expose the major truth why the country does not promote the teaching of history in its schools. The most stubborn of those truths is that the Igbo nation is not landlocked. After all, unlike the Igbo leaders, Nnamdi Kanu is a student of the history and has stoutly rejected the dot in a circle label far before Buhari made the conspiracy public. The IPOB leader understands that besides the southeast geopolitical zone, there are indigenous Igbo areas in the north central and the south-south zones, including the riverine areas of Nigeria. The point is that Igbo nation is far beyond Muhammadu Buhari's dot in a circle map well into the Atlantic Ocean. But Buhari is not solely to blame for the dot in a circle propaganda. He inherited the script from the Igbo marginalization scheme that began during the Biafran War. Central to such scheme is to sustain an artificial boundary, which must suggest that the Igbo people suddenly no longer have access to the Atlantic Ocean. Stop here for a minute and take a critical look at the Nigeria map, featuring the 6 geopolitical zones. Any discerning mind would notice the devious manner federal authorities lumped the indigenous Igbo areas that have natural access to the sea in the south-south zone. Make no mistake about this, no one is wishing for a perfect homogeneous state or zone. After all, there are indigenous Igala communities in the southeast zone as there are indigenous Igbo communities in the North Central Zone. The problem here is the double standard. Of the one hand, the Fulani flock, a recent immigrant to Nigeria, is free to align with the Hausa to assume a new ethnic identity, Hausa Fulani. Moreover, the Fulani is not only free to lay claim to Fulani settlement in the 3 zones of northern Nigeria, but the group also prides itself for wielding the disparate northern ethnic nationalities into a homogeneous political identity. These moves by the Fulani are politically strategic and definitely worthy of emulation. On the other hand, however, any attempt by the Igbo, an indigenous settler in Nigeria, to identify with her indigenous components in the South-South zone or even to align with any other ethnic group is viewed as a taboo by the federal authorities. The latent policy of Nigeria is that the Igbo must be seen as not only as a dot in a circle but must also be viewed as a political leper. Unfortunately, unlike Nnamdi Kanu, the Igbo leaders are grossly naive. They have been busy aiding and abetting the federal authorities to rewrite the Igbo history for their individual interests. Today, any mention of Igbo is squarely pegged to the Southeast zone. Today, there is hardly any Igbo organization or those in position of power that promotes the Igbo agenda beyond the Southeast zone. Unlike Nnamdi Kanu, the Igbo leaders prefer to forget that Ohanaeze Igbo, for example, factually refers to indigenous Igbo communities in 13 states in 3 geopolitical zones, namely Southeast, Abia, Anambra, Ebonyi, Enugu, and Imo State. South-South Zone, Akwa Ibom, Bayelsa, Cross River, Delta, Edo, Igbanke, and Rivers, and North Central, Benue, and Kogi states. Unlike Nnamdi Kanu, the so-called Igbo leaders are too daft to remember that the former Secretary General of Ohanaeze Ndigbo, a Biafran war commander, and the late Secretary General of Indigenous People of Biafra, Joe Achuzia, is not from the Southeast Zone. Needless to mention that Ralph Wazurike, a native of Ogwashuku in Delta State, was once the President General of Ohanaeze, and the eminent pan-Igbo activist Uche Okuku, a native of Ikwere in Rivers State, was not long ago the Secretary General of the Ohanaeze. The third and most sensational sin of the Igbo leaders is their perchance to appease Buhari and the enemies of Ndigbo by carrying on as if Biafra was ever solely a Southeast affair, or rather a dot in a circle. Unlike the Igbo leaders, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu clearly understands that Biafra is not even an Igbo word, and it was Frank Opigo and Ijo, not Igbo, who christened the new nation after the then bite of Biafra. Now, ironically, change the bite of Boni. The IPOB leader does not forget that the last head of state of Biafra, Major General Philip Effiong, a native of Ibiono Ibom in Akwa Ibom State, is not from the Southeast Zone. He knows that the ancient city of Asaba, the bloody epicenter of the Biafran War, is in the South-South Zone. Nnamdi Kanu recognizes that Chukwuma Nzeogu, a native of Okpanam in Delta State, who led the first military coup of 1966, commonly blamed for the civil war, was from the present South-South Zone. The IPOB leaders is bold to expose the true history, which clearly states that a major objective of the first Nigeria coup was to free Obafemi Awolowo from prison and make him the Prime Minister of the country. The analysis into the current Biafra crisis should not only go beyond the fleeting exigencies of secession, it ought to also consider the dynamics of the message. Not only the messenger, the problem must not resolve solely around how Kanu delivers his message. The problem is that the Igbo leaders who claim to know how best to deliver the message choose to do nothing at all. The bigger problem, though, is that President Buhari's pattern of injustice continues to inflame the Biafran crisis. Okay, this is coming from Dr. S.K. Ugbunaya, the 2019 APC presidential aspirant, right from Houston, Texas. Food for thoughts. And I don't think there's anything to remove or to add to what this man has said. He has just said the pure truth. He has just said the pure truth. Let's get your opinion on this. Thank you.